It is just after 6 p.m. here on the East Coast. You know what that means. It's time for MLB Live 4 Lock right here on Awesemo.com. We are sponsored by Yahoo. Alex, how's it going, man?
Good. I mean, last Tuesday, regular season MLB, and there's a very significant thing about Tuesdays during NFL season. Everyone who made all their money rostering Darren Waller, a captain last night, they're about to hit the MLB contest, and I have a feeling they don't even know who this guy Seth Lugo is. So we're gonna get him tonight, man.
Oh, we are going to talk about that because as I was doing my preparations for the show today, I'm over at Awesemo.com. I'm looking at ownership projections. I'm like, whoa, 50% on DK? It's going down a little bit, but man, yeah, we're going to get into that. There is definitely some things on the pitching side we got to get into. Well, you said Tuesday. I thought you were going to talk about Taco Tuesday.
Well, yeah, I mean, Taco Tuesday is a great way to look at it because just like a taco, you need the right composition to your DFS lineup. So, I mean, you got to figure out who's going to be the shell of your lineup, who's going to be the protein and the lettuce and all that. We'll get into it as we go along on the show here.
As unfortunately last night, I decided to go against the ownership and faded DeGrom. Yeah, that didn't work out well for me.
Yeah, I mean, he was like the salary on these guys that are really good pitchers, it's just been really low recently. So like DeGrom, it's like, man, it's hard to fade that. And I mean, we got Lugo today, so that's going to be just as hard, but maybe we'll find the strength.
I mean, that's always, I talk about all the shows I do when I'm developing my lineups. It's like, let me do the dummy crunch. Then let me go look at ownership and let me just kind of see where things are playing in. And then I kind of figure out my exposure from there. I look at our top stack tool, who are the stacks that, are maybe overweight. We saw that at the end of last week with the Dodgers in Coors Field, even though it did work out if you took some of those Dodgers bats. But yeah, man, it's always those tools we got to use over Awesemo.com. But, obviously we want to start the show by talking about the pitching slate. Before we kind of get into our conversation on Seth Lugo and the ownership he's getting, I want to bring up Singer, who's on the hill for the Royals, and particularly the difference in the price points on DraftKings versus FanDuel versus Yahoo. So on Yahoo, he's $33. On DraftKings, he's $6,900. Okay, all right. But then on FanDuel, he is $9,600. So let's look at from a FanDuel slate here, Alex. On a one-pitcher slate, is there value with him at $9,600?
Oh, well, I mean, he's been playing well. In his last couple of games, he got 8 strikeouts. And if you're getting 8 strikeouts, I mean, that's going to, if you can limit runs, like that's going to be a GPP winner for sure. He does have a tough matchup today versus the Cards. So I think that, I mean, he's definitely not a top pitcher on the slate, but that's kind of leading me in the direction where you're saying, where I don't think he's a great play on FanDuel, but on DraftKings and Yahoo, I mean, he's cheap. Why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was, kind of as I was putting my sheet together, is what I do is I go through the pitching slate, the salaries, and just try to see, is there a difference from one site to another? And of course, we always talk about, whether it's a 2-pitcher slate or a 1-pitcher slate. To me, it would be interesting to kind of see where Singer's ownership ultimately ends up being by the time we hit lock, because you're talking about, Davies, 10-1, Valdez, 10,000, Snell, 9,200. May is 8K. Aiken for the Orioles is 81K. That one kind of stuck out a little bit to me as well because he's only 6,300 on DK and $31 on Yahoo.
Yeah, I mean, like I barely have heard of this guy. In fact, I just forgot about him completely until you mentioned him. So, like, you gotta let me look at the line here real quick because that's kind of where I start my process. So. He's for Baltimore versus Boston and Fenway. Plus 105 to win the game are the Orioles. So they are giving some credit to this guy, Aiken. But, I mean, it's, again, like, if you can get him at a good price, I think he's a good play. But if he's expensive, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, looking over at Odd Shopper right now, plus 100 for the Orioles in that game against the Red Sox. Of course, if you want to see all the betting lines on tonight's game, just go to Awesemo.com. Right there at the top of the page, you'll see Odds Shopper. Just click on it. You can see the odds for all of tonight's game. You can, you're looking to place a bet on tonight's game. You can kind of see what sportsbook has the best line over there. So you got to check that out over there. We've mentioned about Seth Lugo, and the reason it came up to me was just earlier today when I was looking at the ownership. His ownership is not as high as it was on DraftKings earlier today. It's come down a little bit, but can you sell me on why Seth Lugo has high ownership? Is it because of, you're thinking, from the strikeout aspect of what he could potentially bring tonight against the Rays?
Yeah, I mean, I think the strikeouts are the main thing, where the Rays lineup they're rolling out tonight is particularly easy to strike out. I have them at about 26% as a team, where the average team is about 23.4%. And if you're looking at Lugo's K percent this year, it's been 32%. It's about 50% more strikeouts to start with. So, I mean, Lugo, he did us all dirty the other night and didn't even make it out of the second inning. But, like, I'm not even joking. I think, like, you got to lock him in. Like, honestly, I'm expecting that because he's been a reliever most of the year. Most people who don't really follow baseball closely aren't going to land on him, and he's the best play tonight. So I think I'm going to be really heavy on Lugo.
Yeah, his last outing, which he had a wonderful negative 7.7 points, and yes, I had plenty of shares of him that night. He went 1 2/3 innings, gave up 6 earned runs, 8 hits, 4 home runs.
That hurts, yeah.
Alex, you know how we are in DFS. When a guy does us dirty in his last time, we remember that the next time he's on the slate.
Definitely, yeah. I think, like, in DFS, we have to have a short memory. And
yeah, totally.
The main thing for pitchers is strikeouts, because strikeouts are relatively easy to predict because some guys get so many more than other guys. Runs are very difficult to predict. In most games, the starting pitcher is projected to give up anywhere between 3 and 5 runs. And I mean, that kind of shows that, like, even the best pitchers are going to get shelled a good amount of the time. So I'm really focusing more on the strikeouts tonight. The Tampa Bay Rays, like, man, they got a good lineup. Not quite as good tonight, but they've had a good season. A lot of lefty bats that are going up against Lugo, but they just strike out a ton, and I think that's going to work out really well for Lugo.
Yeah, 7 of the 9 bats in the Rays lineups tonight are left-handers. Let's look at the other side with Blake Snell. 4-1 of the year's got 54 strikeouts. On DK, he's 9,500. On FanDuel, he is 9,200. I guess, really the question with Blake Snell is how long can he go? I mean, this season, pretty much 5 innings is what you're going to get out of Blake Snell. Maybe 5 1/3, maybe you can potentially get 5 2/3, but we know with Blake Snell, there's always a high potential of strikeouts. But being here in Tampa, we also know that pitch count can get up pretty heavy on him pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he's got good stuff. I mean, he hasn't been quite as good this year, but still 3 xFIP. I mean, that is top notch. I have him for about 30% K rate. The matchup versus the Mets, so they're on the opposite end of the spectrum as the Rays, where, like, their lineup tonight is about 10% harder to strike out than your average team. So I think that based on the price and matchup, Snell is a good play, but he's not exceptional like Lugo tonight.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at, Snell's ownership is right up there on DK as well. So, this is going to be a game that a lot of people are going to be targeting there in terms of these two hitters. Also, Valdez for the Astros is another pitcher that we're seeing getting some high ownership as well, going up against the Mariners tonight. Of course, he's got 68 strikeouts on the season. Newsome is going to be on the hill in that one for the Mariners.
Yeah, I mean, Valdez, another great option. Expensive kind of for the pitcher he is. He's 10K on both DraftKings and FanDuel about, but he's been having a great season. 3 xFIP as well. He doesn't get as many strikeouts as Lugo or Snell. He's at 26%. The matchup versus Seattle, though, they're a bad team, and it's a good park in Seattle. So I think there's a lot of reasons to pick Valdez tonight. And the fact that we got 3 really good pitchers with Snell, Valdez, and Lugo means each one of them might not be as high owned as they would otherwise.
By the way, if you have any questions on tonight's pitching slate, leave them right now on YouTube or in our premium Slack account as well. And I will tell you, as always, best thing to do is just mention me on premium Slack as a way that they definitely know about that question. The other high-end pitching tonight is Zach Davies going for the Padres, 9,900 on DK, 10,100 on FanDuel, and $44 on Yahoo. He is actually the second most expensive pitcher on Yahoo tonight. Only Blake Snell is higher than him at $48.
That is insane. I mean, like, Davies has been having a good season, but I mean, the guys we mentioned already, I'll even throw Singer in there. They're just in much better spots. So I think I'm trying furiously to find him in my spreadsheet here, but I think Davies, like, he doesn't have a long track record of being a great pitcher, and I think you're better off going to someone else.
I do want to mention this question we got in Slack about Blake Snell from SJM26B. He says, how many pitches do we expect for Snell today with Tampa already in the playoffs and then limiting him most of the year? I mean, Alex, that's a legitimate question. The Rays are already in the playoffs. They know they are. I would expect that you're probably going to see about 5 innings of him tonight. And, I think always a question to me with Blake Snell is just, do you believe that you're going to get the value of the strikeouts based on what his salary is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that 5 innings is enough for Blake Snell. So that doesn't, really throw me off of him. But, yeah, I mean, you usually do see at the very end of the regular season, maybe they take the starting pitchers out an inning early. So if Snell's having a good game and he still gets pulled at the end of 4, I mean, that really hurts his fantasy value, and it wouldn't be shocking. So I think that's a good insight that maybe we should start looking at these guys differently now that there's 6 games left. But on the other hand, that would put him in line for maybe another start. Or it's interesting because I guess, he would have to do a bullpen session in between now and then. So I mean, it's not the penultimate day he's going to pitch before the playoffs. So I'm not especially worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it was only 4 occasions this year where he's thrown 90 pitches or more. In those games, he has done fairly well in terms of strikeouts. But I mean, obviously, it's a tough lineup in the Mets, a team that we do look at stacking pretty frequently. Another high price option, and then another option where I think a lot of people are going to be fading him. That is the A's and the Dodgers matchup of Dustin May taking on Frankie Montas. Montas got off to a good start, but man, has not delivered here as of late. Dustin May for the Dodgers, 9,300 on DK, 8,000 on FanDuel, and $36 on Yahoo. And then for Frankie, he's 8,500 on DK, 7,300 on FanDuel, $30 on Yahoo. I got to imagine that, Frankie's going to be pretty low owned. I can't see people really going to him. But is Dustin May in a good spot here in your mind?
Well, I mean, both of these guys are sub 1% owned. So I think that shows definitely not popular options tonight because Oakland and the Dodgers, they both have really strong lineups, particularly the Dodgers. But Oakland, they strike out less than average and they have better power than average. So if anything, you look at bats here, but the fact that it's in LA does mitigate the potential a little bit for bats because of the weather.
Of course, this is MLB Live Before Lock because, of course, we're about 45 minutes away from lock. Do want to let you know that this show is sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They are the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo DFS now includes CSV upload and CSV edit features when you're looking to play those multiple lineups. Make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. In terms of some other pitchers we haven't really talked about, San Francisco going to be home against Colorado. Drew Smiley, he is $34 on Yahoo. Any interest in him in a 2-pitcher slate?
Yeah, I think he's interesting. I mean, he has a good matchup versus Colorado. They've always been a little bit better versus right-handed pitchers. They've kind of like stacked their team with good lefties. So I think Smiley is valuable here. The only thing I'm worried about is maybe the pitch count. He hasn't been going super deep in games. And then the thing that makes me like him is that the park is in San Francisco is going to be really favorable tonight for pitching. That's why we see Colorado projected for only 3.7 runs when you and I both know Drew Smiley is not like the world's best pitcher. So I think that the park factor is big here.
He's had moments throughout his career. He's had moments.
That's true.
Yeah, he's had some moments in there. We briefly talked on Zach Davies. He's going up against the Angels here. Garrett Canning going to be on the hill for the Angels. The Padres lineup is out. Pretty much what you expect the lineup to be from the Padres. But talk Griffin Canning, since we know what the exact lineup is for the Pods tonight. Does he have any value to you tonight, or do you kind of feel like he's kind of a stay away from?
No, I don't think he has any value. I mean, he's 4% owned, so not like completely off the board. He's an average strikeout pitcher at 21%. San Diego's lineup this year is very good. They don't strike out a ton either, so it's just kind of like you got the park factor in San Diego being favorable, but really nothing else is going in Canning's favor tonight.
In terms of some other pitchers that we really haven't hit on yet, I guess we got to go over to the Cubbies. Steven Baralt coming off a complete game. Who saw that one coming in his last start, taking on Quintana here, going for the Cubs? Are you a believer that Steven can pull this off in back-to-back appearances, or are you kind of like, I don't know about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked when I looked at that game and he had gone 9 innings, of course. Cubs, they're a tough lineup. The underlying metrics behind Brawl aren't particularly good either. He has a 4.7 xFIP. Not bad, but that is average. So I think when you put him against a team like the Cubs that has good power, good ability to get on base, he's in a tough spot, but he's super cheap on DraftKings at 6,400. And the Cubs strike out a decent amount. So I think that you could take some shots on Brawl at 3% as kind of a contrarian, a dart throw.
Looking at some other pitchers that we really haven't talked about. We haven't talked about the Arizona game against Texas. Jordan Lyles on the hill for the Rangers, and Caleb Smith getting the start for the D-backs.
Yeah. So Rangers, D-backs, I think Caleb Smith's pretty intriguing. He is coming off injury, but he threw about 60 pitches in his last game. If he can get that to 70, he's going to be one of the best values on the slate, except for Lugo. So I think that Caleb Smith, in a matchup versus a Diamondbacks lineup that is very weak at the bottom end, I think he's in play. And maybe because he is coming off the injury, no one's going to be on him. So I think that Caleb Smith could be really good leverage from a popular player like Lugo, because he has like good strikeouts, and I think the ownership will be down because of Lugo.
Over on YouTube, Sparty says, thoughts on Freeland as a cheap pitcher play. Looking at his salary tonight, we got 7,200 is a salary both on DK and on FanDuel, and $27 on Yahoo.
Yeah, I think on Yahoo at 27 maybe, but 7,200 isn't cheap on DraftKings, and San Francisco's lineup doesn't have like great strikeouts in it. So I think that Lugo is definitely like far and away the best value option tonight. And then we have Caleb Smith. I think he's good. There's a number of cheap pitchers on the slate too, like Singer, we talked about, Smiley. So I think Freeland is kind of like a distant option for me.
We mentioned two pitchers we mentioned earlier that we got a question on, and this is on FanDuel of Keegan Aiken and Seth Lugo. Lugo 7,000 on FanDuel, Aiken 8,100. Is there a preference you would have in terms of if you were going to roster either one of those guys?
Seth Lugo, I think, is definitely the best option on today's slate, like considering price. I think he's just got like the highest strikeout numbers, and the matchup's really favorable for getting strikeouts. So, I mean, there's no guarantees in baseball. Like, he could go out and only last 2 innings based on some fluke, and he's not a great pitcher. But I think that Lugo, like, if I'm not like all in on Lugo, like, it might be close to it because I think he's that good of a play.
And the ownership is much better for Seth Lugo if you want to play him on FanDuel, but of course that's a one-pitcher slate. So, maybe are you gonna, is there a high-end pitcher that you want to go with, or do you sit there and say, you know what, let me take a little bit of a pitcher under 8,000 and let me load up on some of those stacks? I mean, that's obviously a thought process as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's always an argument. There is like an advantage to spending more on bats because like those top echelon teams like generally have like more upside than a kind of value team. And we see that in the top stacks like all the time. So I'm pulling up my top stacks here, and I'm looking on FanDuel. That's the NFL top stacks. Let's see. So I mean, we got some decent team totals on the slate. So I think if you want to go to Houston, if you want to go particularly to Atlanta is like really expensive today on FanDuel, and that's really driving the ownership down. So I think if you want to stack Atlanta, then maybe go into a value pitcher so you can fit in all their best players. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Atlanta just on, because you mentioned about FanDuel, yeah, you got to love that ownership right now on FanDuel if you want to, take that Brave stack, which it's a great way to kind of start talking about some of the stacks tonight in terms of, the stacks that we're seeing ownership. Astros are coming up there. The Red Sox, their ownership on the stack is looking good as well.
Yeah, Red Sox, it looks like we got they're kind of the value stack on FanDuel. So I'm seeing 11% of the ownership's Boston. So actually on DraftKings, they're pretty popular as well. So I think they might be a little bit over on tonight. We do have that pitcher that's getting some buzz going against them with Aiken. But I mean, Fenway is always a good spot, so I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, just looking over at the DraftKings ownership, Arizona, we're seeing with a good ownership share there. But one of the things you kind of look at that top value percentage that you put there in the top stacks tool that people can check out. Go over right now. Go to Awesemo.com. If you don't have a premium membership, sign up right now for an Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass for $15.95. This gives you access to all the premium content that Alex puts together every day, ownership projections, player projections, top stack tool, top pitcher tool. Those are tools you got to check out in helping develop your lineups. And, you look at the value, and the Baltimore Orioles have a great value tonight.
Yeah, the thing about value in baseball is like so many of the lineups are generated by Fantasy Cruncher and some other optimizers that like it really like pushes players that are good like points for their money into people's lineups. And so for that reason in baseball, like it generally makes sense to avoid the teams that are the highest value. And I mean, like you get a really stacked team, and this is somewhat dependent on what tournament you're playing in. But generally the chance of a team like Baltimore succeeding isn't very high. And if they're cheap, that drives a lot of them into people's lineups. So I'm really looking for teams more like Atlanta, where people are going to have to give up a lot to put them in the lineup. And they have a lot more potential as kind of I put in my probabilities of being the top stack.
Yeah, you look at the ownership of Atlanta. I mean, it's solid ownership. If you can pay up to get them, that's ultimately the key. I also saw in terms of some other kind of under-owned stacks that if they do come in, they're going to do well for you. The Tigers was another one that was coming up high in the top value.
Yeah, I mean, the Tigers are always dirt cheap because they don't have a lot of good bats, but we got them going up against Homer Bailey in Minnesota tonight. So I think that's definitely a positive sign. Still, though, Vegas only has them pegged for 4.4 runs, so the chance that they're going to have a blow-up game is a lot lower than other teams. And I have that at about 3.7%. The ownership's still low, though, so I think maybe you go there. But yeah, it's not the most exciting team in the Tigers this year, unfortunately.
You know, we spoke a lot about the pitching matchup in the Rays and the Mets. What's your take on the hitting side of this game?
I think Lugo and Snell, I mean, particularly Snell, but also Lugo, they're decent pitchers. And the weather in New York is going to be really unfavorable for batting tonight. We have 30% humidity. The higher humidity, the better for bats in general. And the temperature at game time is going to be about 68. So really, there's no factors that are positive here other than the fact that, I mean, Lugo, he did us dirty the other night, giving up all those runs. So if he does it again, then maybe the Rays will come through.
Yeah, I was actually looking at the Rays stack. There was very low ownership on the Rays stack. So if you're looking to be, you're playing in multiple entries, maybe you have at least one lineup with the Rays stack there. Someone Canada mentioned about he asked about Baltimore stack, which we already talked about, but he also asked about a Marlins stack is going up against the Braves. Corey Dickerson leading off, then it's Marte, Cooper, and Joyce are your top four hitters in that lineup tonight.
Yeah, so I think we see this over under of 10. That's definitely appealing. That's the highest on the slate. Most of it is going to the Atlanta side, of course, but the Marlins have a team total of 4.8. That's definitely high for them. So I think there's some good plays here. I do notice that Starling Marte on DraftKings is 5,700. He's by far the most expensive player on the team. So I'd make sure to get him in my lineup because he's batting second. He does have good power and particularly good stolen bases. And you're really going to need to force him in there. So Marte would be a guy to target. Matt Joyce betting cleanup at 2,600 on DraftKings, 7 on Yahoo. That's just really, really cheap. So I think he's a good play tonight.
We haven't talked about the Twins bats. Obviously, this is a team. We talked a little bit about the Tigers, but a team that obviously can go yard here. We got their lineup tonight. Berkson leading off this, Donaldson, Rosario, Snow, Garver, Kepler, Gonzalez, Jeffers. In this lineup. I mean, obviously they're a lineup that, man, they can hit home runs. What's your thoughts about the Twins lineup going up against the Tigers tonight?
You gotta like them. They're facing Tariq Skubal. He's a good ranked prospect, but prospect is the key word there. We see these flamethrower arms. Like, it usually takes them a year to really be good pitchers. And that's evidenced by his 4.7 xFIP so far this year. So I think that's definitely a good sign for a Minnesota team that has a ton of power. I think the Twins are definitely a great option tonight.
And we got a question about this game from Jeremiah. He says, do you like taking a shot on the Tigers bats against Homer Bailey as Contrarian been pitching better this year so far?
I kind of like it because, like, the way I'm seeing this slate is we're looking at more at it is that, like, the optimal lineup build as far as, like, what's going to maximize your projection is really go into those value pitching options with Lugo. So I think once you get Lugo in there, there's really no need to go down to the Tigers bats. So I'm thinking that maybe the Tigers are going to be a little bit lower owned than they should be. And I think that they could be a little bit sneakier than I would expect, given that they're all really favorably priced.
And I know there was one comment about the Diamondbacks being the stack of the night. Well, we can see the ownership. You're in the majority in that one. I guess about the best way to say that one.
Yeah, I mean the Diamondbacks, they're very high owned so far, and I mean you got Arizona, which is a good batter's park. They have a team total of 5.5 going up against Jordan Lyles, who he's been terrible this year. 6 xFIP, 1.8 WHIP. So I think that pretty much all the signs are go for the Diamondbacks, especially the pricing, because I mean you get Ketel Marte, he's 2,900 batting second. So I mean he hasn't had much power this year, but he has in previous years. So that's just like really, really underpriced. And then pretty much the whole lineup is dirt cheap. And there's really no reason they should be. I mean, I don't see any problem. It's in Arizona. They're going up against Jordan Lyles. So they're definitely a top play. The ownership's there too.
Yeah, and we are seeing in the ownership that Marte has not gone unnoticed. Everyone has kind of noticed that side. By the way, you mentioned about your love for Seth Lugo tonight. FYI, the Rays minus 143 on the money line in the game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping maybe that drives Lugo's ownership down a little bit, because like I have noticed that the money lines in these games drive the ownership of pitchers, but really like the win isn't that huge a factor in baseball for pitching projection, because like the win on DraftKings is worth 4, on FanDuel it's worth 6. And minus 140 means that Lugo has about 1 in 3 chance to get the win if you factor in like no decisions. So if you that's really only 1 point you're losing out on compared to a pitcher that's minus 200 or something. So honestly, like I don't really factor in the money line very much.
In terms of a stack that someone kind of brought up in chat here a little while ago, the Cubbies against the Pirates.
Yeah, I think we got Brault going up against them, and he's been surprised. I mean, you mentioned earlier, like he had that complete game. Really, like there's no like underlying metric that suggests that is going to happen tonight. I mean, his X was 4.7. The Cubs, their team total tonight is 5.2. So a little bit above average. They have good power with the first 5 hitters. So I think you got to like the Cubs tonight. And I think I'm seeing the bottom of the order kind of go low owned. So if you get maybe 3 of the 5 top guys and go to a couple of the bottom guys in the order, maybe I'd go with Baez, Rizzo. He's lefty, which will drive down the ownership a lot, but he's the cheapest guy in that part of the order. And then maybe you go to Maben at 2,300. That's just way too cheap. So there's some potential here.
Got to give a little tip here to News God over in the premium chat, sharing a tweet that the Angels have said that Simmons has opted out of the remainder of the season.
With the last week, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Joey over on YouTube says, asking if you can explain the best way to pay up to be contrarian if you're using an optimizer.
So I think the best way to do it is you pick out the stacks that you want, and like you create your top maybe 5 stacks of each team that you want to stack. Like obviously it depends a little bit on how many lineups you're going to enter tonight, but there's 2 options tonight for paying up to be contrarian. I mean, you got Seth Lugo really driving the ownership to the middle range of pitcher. So you could pay up at pitcher. You could go with Valdez Snell. I think that might be not the best way to get a good projection in your lineup, but they're both good plays. And then pick stacks based on that combo. Or you could go down at pitcher for both pitchers. Maybe you go with Lugo, you go with Smiley. I think those are both good mid-range plays. And because people are pairing Lugo with Snell and with Framber Valdez, maybe you just have a different build than everyone else.
Yeah, just kind of, looking at our most recent ownership projections, just in terms of pitching tonight, on DK is, you basically have 4 pitchers who are taking up a majority of the ownership. So if you like one of those, middle of the radar options, you're going to put yourself in a good spot tonight if they come through for you. I look at, we've got, basically 4 starters who are taking up, at least 30% of ownership.
Yeah. And I think like you got to also factor in that like certain pairings are going to be more popular because like it just works better with your lineup to have one expensive and one cheap pitcher. So I think like you can really dig down as you build more lineups. Maybe, one guy that you threw out of the start, Brady Singer, he's really cheap on DraftKings compared to FanDuel. But because the other guys are so good tonight, he may be a way to really mix it up. Maybe go with Lugo and Singer, and then you kind of have a different combo than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of looking at just some of the pitchers that we're just not seeing getting ownership. We mentioned about Dustin May a little bit earlier, going for the Dodgers. Someone asked about Kyle Freeland. He's not getting much ownership as well. If you think Steven Baralt can do it 2 games in a row, nice ownership right there. If you're looking to get away from those, pitchers that, the Lugos and the Snells that are getting a good amount of the ownership.
For sure, yeah. I think like going off the board a little bit, it can pay off. I mean, the thing is with 4 good pitchers, like the chance that 2 of them will have a good day is pretty high. So I don't. Maybe we go different on the stacks tonight. We don't necessarily need to do anything like too crazy tonight because maybe we have all this free NFL money flowing in and we just got to get the right combo. So I'm not going to stress it too much tonight, but maybe go into the Dodgers, go into Atlanta that both have low ownership compared to their projection tonight. I think that could give you even additional edge on top of this free money Tuesday.
It's funny you bring up the Dodgers because that was the next team I was going to bring up in terms of the stacks. As we've got their lineup in, it's going to be Mookie Betts leading off, then Corey Seager, Justin Turner, Max Muncy, Cody Bellinger, Will Smith, Chris Taylor, Jock Peterson, and AJ Pollock.
Yeah, I mean, they are priced like they're in Coors Field, which is funny because last week when they were in Coors Field, they were cheaper than they are now. So I think like they're just way overpriced. And my experience in DFS has been when you get a really good team that's overpriced, like sometimes they can be better than they look. So I think that maybe the Dodgers go a little bit low on tonight and they got big upsides. So I think that could definitely get it done. I mean, that happens not too infrequently in MLB DFS.
Yeah, I kind of wonder with them tonight is if someone is looking to go to stack, particularly on DraftKings, are they going to maybe team the Dodgers stack up with Lugo and Singer to try to make that stack work?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you gotta get 2 cheap pitchers, so I think it might be a little bit hard to build a lineup that's any good because as you mentioned, like it funnels you into like a certain combo of pitchers. But I'll still have some lineups, I think, with the Dodgers tonight.
Do you like a Padres stack tonight go up against the Angels? I'm not sure if we mentioned that or not yet.
Well, we got Canning on the mound. He's decent. I mean, a little bit below average this year, it looks like, from his 5x FIP. The park factor in Petco, that's a big negative. It's just a big park. In San Diego, the temperatures aren't that high almost every night. So I think that's a negative, but they got a really, really strong lineup tonight. They're expensive, which will drive down the ownership. So I think the Padres are worth taking a look at tonight.
Jeremiah says, who would be your favorite contrarian stack today in a single entry on both FanDuel and DraftKings?
That's a good question. I think I'd go to my top stacks tool for that. Well, I see one stack. We were talking about them earlier, Tampa Bay. They have only 0.5% ownership. The main thing there is leverage because we're all like going to have Lugo. And if Lugo has a bad night and you got the Rays, you're going to cash no matter what, basically. And there's a good chance that the amount of points you'll need to win is going to be lower because everyone's going to get burned at pitcher. So I think maybe that Rays leverage stack could be sneaky tonight. Who are you looking at for maybe a contrarian stack?
The Rays were definitely a stack that I was looking at. It was all based on ownership. I think
Yeah.
you bring up a great point of like, if you know that a good amount of people are going to be on Seth Lugo, if he doesn't come in tonight, the Rays are likely going to be a stack that could be in the optimal lineup. I think that's the thing to look at. I do like the Atlanta as well. They're a team that I always kind of look at. I mean, yes, you do have to pay up for them, but there is some cheaper pitching options that make it an easier go tonight.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things is Lugo is such a good play tonight. I basically like have him for 5 more points than Brady Singer at like a comparable price point and 3 more points to the Smiley, I think. So you're giving up a big advantage if you don't have Lugo, but that's mitigated if you take Tampa Bay because like you're banking on Lugo already having a bad game. So I think you can have a pretty good strategy by stacking up Tampa tonight.
Yeah, it's by the way, if you do have any questions, hit those up on YouTube or on our premium site account. Of course, we've got us almost 600 people in here. We got 77 likes. Let's get that up like over 150 here in the next couple of minutes. That does help us out a lot. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to hit that notification bell so when you know a new video is up right now here on the Awesemo YouTube channel. Of course, we got a ton of NFL content throughout the week, every day here on YouTube, also on the website, and let everyone know about this NFL Weekly Express Pass that we got going on.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who watch our content. You know, like a lot of people are casual players, not throwing down big money, and like a lot of our packages do cost a lot. So as an investment, it might be pricing you out. And that's really something I've been trying to fix by like creating a different like package that has a lot of value that can really help you if you're a beginning player and you're just entering a few lineups and not playing like every day, playing like a couple times a week. And that's really the idea behind the Express package. So for NFL, it's $4 a week, and we added all the Showdown content. So on Thursday night, you can get the projections, you get the ownership, the top Showdown plays. And for the main slate, you get my big board, which is my top rank. I rank all the players from best to worst in each slate. So I think all this stuff kind of gives you a good bang for your buck, and it will really help you build lineups that are going to be competitive in these tournaments so that you can build your bankroll and hopefully sign up for the full package after.
Alex, I'm just trying to figure out who I'm picking up this week with all my injuries. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Dude, I was looking for Devonta Freeman now that he's signed with the Giants, but he was already picked up in every league. Like he wasn't even on the waivers. I'm like, how do people draft a guy that's not even on a team before the season? But they did.
That's crazy. Yeah. It's there was. I was looking at my waiver wire this morning a little bit, going, all right, Chris McCaffrey's out. What running backs am I going on to find it? So yeah, it's man, that's part of it. So great content right now over at Awesemo.com. You can see it right now on the screen. Jordan's got it up there with that Express Pass. You got to sign up. And as I always say, Alex, I always recommend add Fancy Cruncher to your account because man, that thing comes in key for me daily. I'm on Fancy Cruncher daily, so that's always something I do recommend there. In terms of we do want to kind of what's that?
One more thing I want to throw out is like even if you don't want to sign up for package, my start sit rankings are free every week. So I always get a million questions. Should I start like Mike Davis or Devonta Freeman or whatever? Like you can get all the answers on the site.
I'm guessing, yeah. I'm sure your mentions on a Sunday morning are pretty much that's a good amount of the mentions.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone wants to know who to start to beat their buddies. So I'm happy to help out with that.
Jeremiah says they seem to disappoint me every night I play them. But what about an Astros top of the order stack? And looking at the Astros lineup tonight, the top of the order, Springer leading off, Altuve hitting second, Brantley third, Bergman fourth, and then Tucker batting fifth.
I think the Astros are a great stack tonight. I mean, they're going up against some new pitcher, LJ Newsome. He's been actually average this year, so not a huge factor. The park in Seattle isn't great, but they're just cheap, and their team total is among the highest of the slate at 5.6. So I think the Astros are a good chalk tonight. Just don't bank on them winning you a GPP because so many other people are going to have them.
I tell you, we are getting a ton of questions about Keegan Akin. It leads me to believe that we might see a little ownership spike in Keegan Akin here as we lead up into in the lock here at 7:05.
Definitely. I mean, like, I think when you're right, when you see everyone talking about someone like that makes you think the ownership is going to be pretty high. So I do think with the Lugo on the slate, he's going to get a lot of ownership. Akin actually, I think he's going really under-owned tonight. I think actually, like, now that I'm looking more at it, you got Boston. Their lineup tonight is actually pretty good, but Akin's strikeout rate so far has been about 25%. I think it is actually higher. I just kind of nerfed it in my projections because he didn't have that long-term record, and he's cheap. So I think that with so much ownership going to Lugo, going to Smiley, like, even if Akin is a little bit higher than we have him on the site, he could be a nice option.
I know we have a lot of single entry players that will watch us every day here. And, so Jeff asked a question about single entry GPP. And this is on DraftKings, noting about pitchers in terms of who to kind of look at here. And, of course, when I'm playing in single entries, Alex, for me, it's big of, okay, let me look at ownership. Let me see where ownership's at. And, and trying to figure out how can I make my lineup a little different. I mean, we've talked about what we're seeing in the ownership with Seth Lugo and Blake Snell. They're pretty much identical at this point on DraftKings. So those are going to be the two pitchers that are going to be in a lot of people's lineups. So for me, I'm going, okay, where can I go to maybe counter that?
Definitely. Yeah. I think single entry, like, first of all, like, good on everyone who's entering those, because I feel like those are probably the best options as far as where you can get like a good chance to win and make some money. And I think tonight it's a little bit different because the thing with these single entries is, like, the player pool is a lot different than the multi-entries. And casual players make up a much larger percentage of entries. In tonight's slate, my read is that casual players aren't going to have enough Seth Lugo. He's been a reliever most of the season. Unless they really dive into the slate, they're going to overlook that name. So I'm really going to key in on Seth Lugo in single entry. And then it's all about, like, what stack gives you the best chance to win. In my opinion, maybe Atlanta would be the best one to go to because they're projected to do really well and the price is driving down ownership. So I think that would be how I'd start my lineup in single entry.
You brought up a great point about single entries last week when we did the show together, where you said, look, if you want to kind of get away from all the pros, single entries is a great way to go.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like part of the reason I started this site is because, like, there are some really sharp people you're competing against every night. And if you play single entry, that's much less of a factor. So that's going to really help your chances to win, because the key rule in DFS is you got to play people that don't know as much as you if you want to win in the long run.
Yeah, no, there's definitely there. Was it Bryson asked, he goes, any love for the Royals against the Cardinals tonight?
Well, I think I'm looking at this game, 8.5 over under isn't very good, but they're going up against Austin Gomber. I barely know who that is, but his stats don't. He's been running hot. He has a 2.4 ERA, but his xFIP is 5, which shows he's given up about half as many runs as he should have. So I think that is a good factor. And then you got good fantasy players like Mondesi, Merrifield. So I think it could be worth taking some shots on the Royals tonight, but they're definitely not a top option.
You got a home run pick for me tonight?
Oh, I always have home run picks. I mean, I know you probably got like 3 of them all keyed up here, but
no, I don't. I've only got one teed up for you. I only got one.
Okay.
Give me Cody Bellinger.
All right, Cody Bellinger, nice man. I like that. Montas going up against him. He's got the platoon split. That's a good one. Maybe I'll channel my inner EMAC here and go to a player in San Francisco. I'll go with Mike Yastrzemski. His ISO this year has been 27%. So that is about 70% more extra bases than your average player. So I think that he's got a lot of upside.
You're setting off that bat signal, EMAC. You know he's going to be a chat going. You know he's going to be there at any moment. He heard that bat signal. You talking about the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, like he's probably made a ton of money, like betting these over/unders in the Giants games from what he's been saying on the show. So, I'm hoping to ride his hot streak here.
We mentioned about, and by the way, EMAC just chimed in. By the way, so you got the bat signal. We talked about this earlier, but we got another question about it. So just kind of rehash it for people who are joining the show late. Why is there so much love for Seth Lugo tonight?
It's because of his strikeout percentage and the matchup. So he was a starter about 2 years ago, pretty average. But last year in the bullpen, he threw strikeouts to about 31% of guys, and he's been keeping that rate up until this year. He's stretched out. He's thrown 80 pitches in a couple of games. The last one excluded, but that was because he just like stunk completely. He got blown out in the second inning. So I think you don't love that, but he's got the strikeouts and those win you money in tournaments.
Of course, if you do have any questions, just fire those off right now in YouTube or in Slack. Do you have a favorite one-off hitter tonight? Is there someone that maybe is not, maybe they're on a team that is, kind of a low ownership stack, but in terms of like a one-off when you got to fill that last roster spot, for your lineup, that it's someone that you find yourself turning to a little more than others?
I do like the one-off hitters because it does like differentiate your lineup if you don't stack every single player. Maybe like a value guy works well there because that just helps you unlock a different build than you could otherwise get. So I think what I'm looking at here, Ketel Marte would fit the bill. He's popular, but I think like the price is just too good. Even if he has an average day, he could be a part of the winning lineup.
A couple of questions we got here on Slack. It said, who would Alex lean on for pitcher on a FanDuel single entry?
I think I just like Lugo tonight for both. Like I know he's more expensive on FanDuel, I believe, but I think that he's just gonna not be owned nearly enough by people who haven't been paying a lot of attention. If you're watching the show, I'm assuming you're not part of that group, so it's a little bit harder to understand why no one's why Lugo wouldn't be like super high owned. But I think that that would be the guy I go to.
A couple of one-off hitters that people are mentioned: Duvall, Mountcastle. I saw some Tucker is another one that mentioned, but I kind of feel like people are going to look at that Astros stack.
Yeah, I think the Astros tonight. They look pretty solid, so definitely worth looking at for one-offs.
Let me just go back over to Slack, see if there was something. Another question on Slack: Lugo or Valdez? I mean, you mentioned about obviously why you like Lugo, but obviously Valdez is someone you have to pay much more for than Lugo on FanDuel. Lugo 7,000, Valdez 10,000.
Yeah, I think Valdez is a great pitcher. The matchup's not quite as good tonight with Lugo just having a really good strikeout matchup. So that's why I like Lugo the most, but Valdez certainly is a great option too.
Don't worry, I'm literally putting a FanDuel lineup together right now, Alex. I'm just looking at raise bats. When they start going off, I'm just going to hit you up, say, told you.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, I'll have them too because, like, if you build multiple lineups, obviously you're trying to try to predict, like, different scenarios that could happen. One easy one is, like, Lugo is only going to be in the winning lineup if he has a good night, obviously, right? So if he has a bad night, yeah, you're going to want the other guys, so.
Yeah, that's definitely something you have to look at. In terms of of course we're sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports and kind of looking at some of the pitchers over there. We mentioned, do you like Lugo? But the problem is on Yahoo, I should say, he's $41. So the value's not there like it is on the other sites.
Yeah, I think he's still underpriced kind of. He should be more in that $50 range where he's not like in an amazing spot tonight. It's like probably top 5% of all like pitching spots. So I think that's like really good. So I'd price him about like 50 or 55.
Next up, this is for a FanDuel GPP: Bellinger and Will Smith, or Mookie Betts and Peterson.
I'm having trouble. Like, I don't know which Peterson. Help me out here. I think
for the Dodgers.
Okay.
I'll double check, make sure Jock is batting 8th.
Oh, Jock Peterson. Okay, yeah. I think I would go with Betts Smith. I think Betts is probably the one guy I would want to have in that lineup for sure. So that'd be my choice.
We are 5 minutes before lock, so you guys start getting those lineups in. Get those last minutes. If you're uploading some of your CSV, you got to get those in. We mentioned so much about Lugo. What do you think the ceiling is for him tonight?
I mean, it's probably like 30 plus. He's got a great ceiling because of all the strikeouts. So. Oh, the one other guy I haven't been mentioning that I see is popping in my lineups here is Caleb Smith. He's another really good value. So, like, I'm seeing in a lot of my lineups, I just spent down at pitcher for both pitchers, kind of like what we were talking about with Singer and Lugo. And that unlocks, like, a different build that most people aren't going to get to because if they're going with Lugo, they're going to go with Framber Valdez and Snell. If you just punt both pitchers, you can get some really good lineups too.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at our latest update that we had, kind of mentioned some hitters maybe we really haven't talked about. Josh Donaldson's getting some decent ownership on DraftKings.
I mean, yeah, he's a great player, so that makes a lot of sense.
Some other ones, some value plays that are getting some ownership. Austin Hayes for the Orioles. He's 2,400 on DK. DJ Stewart, 2,600. He's getting okay ownership. In terms of hitting, do you got a favorite high price bat tonight? Is it someone in that Dodgers lineup, or maybe is it the Braves lineup?
I honestly, I'll probably have a lot of different bats, but I think Mookie Betts is just kind of the guy on top of my head because we were talking about that team just previously, and I think that the Dodgers all may go a little bit under-owned because they're just really expensive tonight. So I think going to any of them, with my favorite being Mookie Betts, is a good play.
Yeah. As I'm now finalizing a lineup for DraftKings, you're going to make me put Seth Lugo in a lineup. You're talking me into this one.
You'll thank me later.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Is a 3-man pirate stack a good play?
I think with the 3-mans, I don't have like a ton of research on this, but I feel like when you have a smaller stack, like if you have the guys closer in the order, that kind of adds a little bit of correlation. So that's how I like to do it with the smaller stacks, and the Pirates are as good as any.
Of course, we're just a couple of minutes here before lock, so you got to get those lineups into. Wayne asking, Byron Bergson or Sterling Marte? You mentioned about Marte's price was up there, but what's kind of your take on that one?
I like Buxton a lot. I mean, he's still priced like he's supposed to bat at the bottom of the order, and he's batting leadoff these days, so he makes a great play. So I think Buxton would be my preferred option.
Yeah, just kind of looking at some of the Orioles bats. I tell you what, if you want to put them, say, with a Brave stack, those pricing does kind of help you out there.
Yeah, I think both of those aren't going to be super high owned, so I think that that could be a good stretch.
Yeah, that's something you got to kind of look at there when you're looking to build those stacks here. Of course, good luck to everyone who's going to play tonight. Elizabeth asked for about a Padres stack.
I think the Padres maybe a little bit overpriced tonight, given the park. But they got a really talented lineup. So I think the Padres might fall in that category with the Dodgers, where there is a red flag, but that's just driving all the ownership elsewhere. So I think they could be a good play.
You know, the Rangers were another team that we were seeing some good stacks numbers on as well. And they're another team that there is obviously some value there in terms of their salaries.
Yeah, I mean, the Rangers, they have been having an off year, to say the least, but they got this game in Arizona. That's a good park shift, and they're really cheap. So I do like Caleb Smith a little bit more going up against them, but stacking the Rangers isn't a bad idea. Yeah,
so we're getting right up there. Of course, be sure to check all the information we have over there at Awesemo.com. Sign up for the MLB Plus weekly pass for $15.95. All you got to do is go to Awesemo.com right there in the top left-hand corner. You'll see that Awesemo Plus. Just click there, sign up for it today. Heard Alex talk about the NFL packages that we have going on as well. So you got to check out everything we got going on over there at Awesemo.com. We always have other contests that we have going on, so you got to check that out as well. So anything else you want to kind of mention before we get out of here for this edition?
Yeah, guys, just thanks for watching the show. Last week of MLB regular season, so let's make sure to capitalize on it while we can. And hopefully we'll have some good postseason content for you guys too. So look forward to that. And make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when we're going live, and really appreciate it.
Of course, I'll be back tomorrow night. We've got MMA strategy show as we're gonna get you ready for Saturday's UFC event. So be sure to check us out tomorrow night. We'll be on at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. But we have reached lock. Good luck to everyone tonight, and that is going to do it for this edition of the MLB Live Before Lock right here on Awesemo.com.